Prince William flies a helicopter as the Army Air Corps' new Colonel-in-Chief.
And H&M blame a missing check in the post after the charity regulator declares Archewell delinquent. Hello and welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into the lives of two of the most famous royal couples on either side of the pond. I'm Kinsey Schofield and I'll be bringing you updates on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex right here in California.
And I'm Katie Nicholl, and I'll have all the latest news from the Prince and Princess of Wales here in the UK. But I think actually, Kinsey, we're a bit top heavy on spares this week, and it's all been about Prince Harry.
That's, you know what? Yes and no, Katie, because every headline I saw this week was about Meghan Markle. What did Meghan Markle wear? How did she style her hair? What jewelry was she wearing? Her heritage. Let's talk about her ancestry. So I completely agree with you, but it did seem like we had a lot of Meghan in the headlines. Did you see that too?
Yeah, I suppose it was heavy on the Sussexes, I probably should say. But it's interesting because last week you and I were debating about why Meghan was not going to be at the Invictus Games. And, you know, I think you called it that she was unlikely to attend. And you were absolutely right. She didn't turn up. And you were saying it was perhaps because she didn't want to overshadow the event. And I suppose when you consider all of the coverage, and it has focused so heavily on her appearance and her wardrobe and what she's been wearing, perhaps that might have detracted from some of the hype and the focus, as it should have been, on the Invictus Games. So perhaps her bypassing the UK, as convenient as it was also about allowing that spotlight to stay on Harry. Because as you say, when they were in Nigeria, Harry barely got a look in.
That's a great point. Thank you so much for making it. Let's focus on Nigeria for a second. Did you feel like the trip was considered a media success? Were most of the headlines, if not all of them, positive? Did you think that they walked away feeling like Nigeria was a win?
Oh, I reckon that when they were sort of sitting on that plane going back to LA, they would have been, toasting themselves, probably with a glass of champagne in first class, saying, well, that went well, didn't it? What a great success. Because if you didn't know that it wasn't a royal tour and you were sort of watching it, you'd think, well, that's every inch a royal tour. There were the visits to the schools, there were meetings with representatives from their charities. It sort of had all of the components of a royal tour, and the red carpet was well and truly rolled out for them. So you're always going to get the sort of snipey commentary about Meghan and her outfits, and I think that's just inevitable. But in terms of was it a success? Well, if you're judging that based on newspaper column inches alone and headlines and front page news, I would say absolutely. And when you consider that on one day Harry went head to head with his brother William, who was in the Scilly Isles, they were sort of battling for that front page profile and sort of both of them making big headlines at the same time.
That's right. It was Andy Warhol too that said he only judged the media he received not by the tone but by the inches in the column. So that's so funny that you bring that up. One of my least favorite parts, I'll be honest, was when there's a video of Prince Harry saying hello to my in-laws, or like, hi in-laws, and it was just such a staged joke. And I don't know, I just thought, oh my gosh, this just feels so weird. Am I being petty? Am I being catty?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think you are. I think when he's referring to in-laws, he's talking about Meghan's side of the family, right? And a lot was made of the fact that her DNA test showed that she was it 43% Nigerian? And she talked about, being quite wowed when she found out about that, and her excitement at telling her mum the findings of the DNA results. I mean, I think, she clearly feels an affiliation with her heritage and with her ancestry. I certainly recall seeing that when they were together in South Africa. Whatever Harry's quips are about his in-laws, perhaps putting that aside, he's always had a really close affiliation with Africa. He loves that continent. It's always been a very, very special place in his heart. And so I think there's a sense of whatever country they go to, whether it's Malawi or Botswana or now Nigeria, I think there is a sense of sort of coming home for both of them. Meghan because of her ancestry, Harry because Africa's always had a place in his heart. And I think, to be honest, Kinsey, they always get a really warm welcome when they're out travelling around Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the Queen at one point suggested that they go have their like extended honeymoon there. The way that she went off with Prince Philip, she thought, why don't you go spend some time in Africa, escape kind of the chaos of the headlines? And it almost, looking on the situation now, it might have been a great solution to their problems that we've heard so much about in Spare and within their Netflix docu-series. Do you believe there will be more tours like this? Because on Sussex.com, this is referred to as the first of many memorable tours. And do you think that these activities might get under the official royal family skin?
Well, I think based on the success of this tour, and it has been really successful, I think Harry and Meghan will go wherever they are invited, wherever the royal red carpet is laid out for them. And, it really was the case in Nigeria. They were there at the request of the Chief of Defence. They had, obviously, no security issues. And I think if it was a taster tour, then I think definitely that sets the tone for what we can expect to come. I mean, I'm sure there will have been cameras there capturing a lot of that footage. That's all really, really good material, I suppose, for anything new that they might be doing with Netflix. And I think more than anything, is putting them on that world stage. I think when they're in Montecito, they're very aware that they're living in a real bubble, and and that sort of whole California bubble. But put them in Africa or somewhere else, and suddenly there's a different sort of attention on them, and that's a really powerful spotlight, and that's a power I think that they're going to want to harness. And the meetings that they took, whether it was sort of promoting Invictus, potentially for Nigeria to host Invictus one time, or meeting with tech companies, they will have been doing all of those sorts of things, and just laying down foundations for a future relationship with that country, and sort of showing, well, we may not be members of the royal family, but we can do a tour like this and it can have an impact. And as we said, it did rack up those column inches. We were interested in what they were doing, and I think we will see more of those tours.
All right, well, you painted this amazing picture of Harry and Meghan on a plane, cheersing with champagne glasses in their hand. What do you think they thought? I mean, I'm just imagining this, cheersing, champagne in hand, when they got the push alert or the email notification or the text message that Page Six had the exclusive about the California Attorney General considering Archewell Charity delinquent. Because, what timing, what unfortunate timing. They're riding this wave of great PR, and all of a sudden they're hit with this story that they know is going to blow up.
Yeah, that's the moment when the bubbles sort of fall flat and the champagne tastes slightly warm and sour, isn't it? Really unfortunate timing. Obviously, they've been quick to sort of bat off any suggestions that Archewell is in any sense of the term delinquent. That it's still making money, it's still paying out grants. Reading between the lines, it seems that they're saying this check got lost in the post. And if it's as simple as that, and it's been delayed or perhaps hasn't been processed at the relevant government department, then it should be pretty seamless to smooth the whole thing over. But yes, I think, as you say, sort of jetting back to LA, riding on a high, going back with so many good things to report back to their team, with suddenly that bombshell news that they were being investigated, and it was a big question mark over Archewell. So not ideal, but they've been late filing their accounts with Archewell in the past, I believe, and it doesn't seem to have done the brand too much damage. But I'm sure over the coming weeks we'll see or hear news of Archewell doing something new and vibrant, and this will feel like old news.
Right. I mean, and even if, unfortunately, the situation is, even if it is someone else's fault, it's the postmaster's fault, or it's the government's fault because a check slid behind a desk. Unfortunately, they have been declared delinquent. An attorney general sent a formal letter, which everyone has now been privy to, and there are penalties that they have to pay. So at the end of the day, it's the worst. I mean, I'm sure that they are just so frustrated that this came to fruition, because it's really out of their control. But I do think that this is just the wildest timing. Sitting back, I just thought, I cannot believe that this is happening now.
Well, imagine how they felt, Kinsey. They must have been absolutely livid. And if it was a sort of administrative error, perhaps on their part or one of their team's parts, Yes, I wouldn't want to be in those shoes, put it that way.
No, no. All right, so talk to me about these kind of dueling narratives that are going on. Really, everyone saying that the king absolutely shut down his son. A lot of positive reaction to that, but a lot of a negative reaction to that. People siding with Prince Harry, very sympathetic towards Prince Harry over the idea of the king rejecting him. Now the Daily Mail is reporting something a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable. Initially, the palace didn't want to get into any sort of narrative on this. We reached out to them last week to try and find out whether there would be a meeting. We were told there'd be no comment. So it was then Harry's spokesperson who came out and said that there wouldn't be a meeting because there wasn't time in Charles's schedule. Over the weekend, reports broke that actually the king had enough time to meet David Beckham, but he didn't have enough time to meet his son. That will have riled Harry. It was clear that the king did have a busy diary of engagements. We saw him having official meetings, and we know that he was conducting or attending his first garden party at Buckingham Palace. But we're now hearing that, despite sort of Harry's narrative, and I think it was you, Kinsey, that sort of labelled it a victim narrative last week, that actually the king, according to reports in the Daily Mail, had offered a royal residence to be made available to Harry, possibly somewhere in Windsor, and that in fact it was Harry's decision to stay in a hotel, which, given his gripe over his security here, certainly feels like a riskier place to stay rather than a royal residence. So it feels like some concessions were made. There was an olive branch reached out while time couldn't be found in the king's official schedule. He wanted to be able to do something and throw something to his son. And it appears that Harry didn't accept that offer of accommodation. I think we just need to get used to this narrative. It's that whole sort of recollections may vary, isn't it? The statement that the Queen so famously made after the allegations of racism within the royal family that the couple made during their Oprah interview. And I think when you have a rift like this, you're always going to have two different narratives. But I think, the palace or aides close to the king or whoever it is who may be sort of counter briefing would be wise to just leave it. Harry's clearly keen to spin his own narrative. Let him do that.
Wow, that's really good advice. And it's interesting because it does seem like if Harry were to stay within a residence, it might be easier to see the king. Of course, they have so many that actually might be on the other side of the world if he did stay. Can I ask you this off the cuff? It does seem like David Beckham is just so in love with this family. Queuing 12 hours to pay respects to the Queen. Yes. This secret meeting with the king because he wants to entrench himself in the king's charity. I've heard it joked about that he's like gunning for a knighthood.
He is.
I honestly.
This is all about.
That's what it is?
Yeah, for sure. This is all about wanting to put the Sir into David Beckham, and absolutely. I mean, can you imagine? That would just be the cherry on the cake for the Beckhams and their empire, because of course that's the title they don't have. And I actually feel that David Beckham probably does deserve it after all these years. But I think clearly he's going to have to step up his charitable arm and donations a little bit more. And the King's Foundation will obviously be very grateful for his support. So I think the fact that a meeting was taken will bring high hopes for the Beckhams of that much longed for knighthood.
So funny. All right, talk to me about Prince William's Top Gun moment this week, because those pictures of Prince William and King Charles were so handsome. It was so great to see the two together.
Yeah, but I loved the fact that Kensington Palace put up on their social, those early images of William when he was first learning to pilot and fly helicopters with today. And you can see he's aged. You can see he's an older man now, but he still took to the skies in an Apache, in a new role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps. And again, I think when you talk about timing and the blow of that announcement about Archwell, when Harry's sort of got all this sunshine and happy positive coverage in Nigeria, the images coming out of the UK are of Charles and William looking closer than ever, with William being honoured with the title that really should have gone to Harry, because of course the Army Air Corps was the regiment of the army that he served with, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's the very same squadron that Harry served in. So I think that's going to feel a bit like a slap in the face for Prince Harry, just as he's riding high on the success of Nigeria. There's just something else to just keep him anchored and keep him, keep him down on earth. So yeah, interesting timing. And a great accolade for Prince William. I think he'll have been very proud of that. And I would imagine, knowing how much he loves flying, to be back in the cockpit and like you say, having his Top Gun moment. It's been quite a while since he's been in the cockpit. So I'm sure he would have loved every minute of it.
Can I just play devil's advocate here and say, could this just be a coincidence? All of this happening around the same time as Nigeria. Could it just be a coincidence?
Yes, I'm sure it was. I mean, listen, something like William taking over this new title and going to this ceremony in Hampshire with his father, we know how far in advance royal diaries are planned. So I think that there's every chance that this is just coincidental timing. I don't think there's sort of deliberate scheming going on here. It just, certainly on the part of the Sussexes, just seems to be quite unfortunate timing for them.
Do you feel like, over here there are some headlines about, it was specifically People magazine, people that used to work with Prince William and the Princess of Wales, saying that William was furious about the rumors about the Princess of Wales. And I saw somebody leave me a comment about this that I thought was really a great comment to make, that do we lean too far into the Prince William angry, Prince William furious, Prince William mean headlines? Is that lazy journalism that we just like see this word and we grab it and like we repeat it? He's been in such great spirits lately. He looks so happy and just engaged and charming. Should we kind of lay off the Prince angry or Prince Harry angry or Prince William angry, mad, like mean? Should we lay off?
I don't think there's anything sort of angry or mean about Prince William being in fact just protective of his wife at this time. And we know they're going through a very, very difficult time. I've heard some encouraging news this week that the princess is actually doing much better with her treatment, and perhaps that's why Prince William felt able to go off to the Scilly Isles and have that couple of days away from home. And as you say, he looks really very happy to be in Hampshire with his father, happy and proud, I would say, not angry, not miffed that his brother's sort of competing for headlines. He sort of seems to be taking everything in his stride, and I think that's positive, and I think it's a positive indicator as to where the princess is at the moment in terms of her recovery. Of course, still no news from the palace in terms of when we're going to next see Kate. We are told that we're not going to get a running commentary. We know that she will now be several rounds into her preventative chemotherapy. I suspect we're not going to see her until much later this year. I know there were rumblings around June and Trooping the Colour. There's a big society wedding coming up later this summer, which ordinarily she would be at. But I think the idea that she's going to be returning anytime soon should probably be played down. But as I say, the fact that William is out and about, that's encouraging. And with a smile on his face.
Very much so. All right, so I'm just going to needle you a little bit here. You don't think we're going to see her for Trooping? That really disappoints me.
I think it's really unlikely, Kinsey. I think she's clearly going through a tough time. This is pretty hardcore treatment that she's on. It's probably going to leave her feeling pretty wiped out. We don't know how she's responding to it. We just have to hope that it's working. And I think any ounce of energy that she has left over isn't going to be to sort of get ready and be up there for Trooping, but reserved for her kids and hopefully running around the gardens at Windsor Castle with them.
Well, I think that it does make me so much happier knowing that you've heard that she's doing better. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. That's great news, because I've had several people ask me about it, and I've said, you know what, that's not something I'm going to engage in because I don't know, and I don't want to even guess. So I'm so grateful that you've shared that with me, because that's great news. I'm coming next month. I hope I get to see you around Trooping. That would make my day.
That is a day. In fact, I think we need to do a special episode, the two of us, from Trooping together, and let's hope the sun's out.
Exactly. Well, I've loved catching up with you today. Honestly, this episode has been so comfortable and just fun. I think that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is my favorite episode. I hope that everybody agrees with us in the comments.
Well, I think my favourite will be actually seeing you in person at the palace for the King's birthday parade. So let's see if we can top this one. But we would love to hear your comments, whether you agree with us, whether you disagree with us. Please, all feedback is welcome.
Thanks so much. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.